Hello, everybody. I am Razorblade Mango, and welcome to another episode of Bubbly Wubbly Nostalgia. And this was a little bit of a difficult episode to pick out. Initially, actually, I had a few ideas running through my head as to what I wanted to talk about this time. But then I remembered, wait a minute, Star Wars Battlefront is coming out tonight. I had completely forgotten about that. Seriously, I had. So, what better way to celebrate that than to talk about my love for the original Star Wars Battlefront? Specifically, Star Wars Battlefront II. So, I would honestly never really call myself a big Star Wars fan. I mean, the original trilogy and the prequels were a big presence in my household growing up because I was a nut for those movies when I was a kid. But even back then, I still would never. I would feel guilty calling myself a big Star Wars fan compared to the die-hard passion people have for this property and this world. I mean, I would just feel completely out of place. I'd feel like a fake saying that I was a huge Star Wars fan growing up. Because I was a fan, I quickly, when I was a lot older, mainly like in my late middle school, high school years, started to grow out of it. But one of the things that kept me tied to the universe, even when I was older, was Star Wars Battlefront. And it was actually the first one was a graduation present from my cousin for graduating elementary school. And to this day, it still remains, and Battlefront 2 as well, two of my most played games ever. I mean, it seemed like every weekend when I was in 6th grade, I was booting up Star Wars Battlefront to play, like especially during that summer. And I still love it. It has its problems. They both do. They have some big problems. But even going back now and playing it, I still love those games. I still think Pandemic captured the Star Wars universe to a T in those games with the atmosphere and the sound, something that DICE is doing as well with Star Wars Battlefront. Even though I haven't played it, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm most likely gonna end up renting it at some point, and I'll have a video for you guys detailing my thoughts on it. And it seems they're doing it justice, but let's go back to Pandemic Star Wars Battlefront. The thing I love the most about these games, compared to what I saw in Star Wars Battlefront, the DICE one, is the wealth of variety and content that is in both games. I mean, you have classic modes, of course, like Instant Action, Galactic Conquest, but also you had, like the really excellent multiplayer. And even though I mainly played it on PlayStation 2, I still played the PC version at friends' houses, and these were massive battles, stuff that I have not seen. Even today, even current gen games still have not replicated, for the most part, that epic scale that was present in the Pandemic Star Wars Battlefronts on PC. Those things went up to like 64 players, and I've even seen footage at some point of someone like modding the game to make it to like a crazy 120 players. I mean, it was massive stuff, and I still love it. I think they're both excellent games, particularly Battlefront 2, which is my favorite of the two, easily, because I think the playable heroes this time around feel great. There's a lot of variety in that, and you can play out your Star Wars fantasies in that game. I mean, if you've ever wanted to see General Grievous, Yoda, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker all go up against each other in a battle, you can do that. If you've ever wanted to see what it would be like for clone troopers and the droids to fight in Jabba's palace, you can do that. There's a lot of leg room to create Star Wars fantasies. Something that I think is restrictive about the new Star Wars Battlefront. And I'm sorry to keep comparing it to that, but it's what I've got to show how awesome the old Star Wars Battlefronts are. And, there's also the vehicular combat, which kind of sucks in the first Star Wars Battlefront. That I definitely will not deny. The vehicle combat in the game, especially the ships, are terrible. And in Battlefront 2, they definitely were improved. Space battles were cool, but I don't think they're this huge, amazing thing that a lot of people say they are today. I mean, they're fun. They're not great. I mean, it's still no reason to keep them out of the new Battlefront, but, but I think those games are superb. And the story of how I got into Star Wars Battlefront 2, how I got it, of course, propelled by my love of the first one, is I actually had a choice when I was in, I forget which year it was, but I think it was, I think 2000, late 2005 is when it came out. I think that was the same year that I received the first Star Wars Battlefront as well. So I was well prepared for Battlefront 2 to come out. And I'd seen all the trailers, and I loved it. But at the time, and remember, I was like 12 years old when it came out, I adored Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. I loved that movie to death. And even to this day, I still think it's the best out of the prequels. And I still think it's a very unfairly criticized. I think the whole prequels, for the most part, are unfairly criticized. But I remember going to Best Buy, and I was with my mom, and my mom was like, okay, you have two choices. You can either get Star Wars Battlefront and fork up your allowance for the next, month, or I can buy you Revenge of the Sith. What are you going to pick? And I went with Star Wars Battlefront 2 because, sacrificing a month of my allowance for that game, that was worth the price. And I'm glad I chose it because I had a hell of a time playing that game. Even when stuff around that time, like games that I've covered previously, like Radio Stories and Kingdom Hearts 2 were coming into my life, Star Wars Battlefront 2 was still a very, very dominant game that I played on my PlayStation 2 with constant rotation, especially when friends would come over and play the split screen co-op or versus mode that I'm glad they have in the new Star Wars Battlefront. I would ignore the game if they didn't have this, but I just love being at my friend's house or my friends being at my house. And I remember, I think the match I remember the most is when a friend of mine was playing with the droids, and he was Boba Fett, and I was Obi-Wan, and I got, not Boba Fett, Jango Fett, and I got my ass kicked. And I remember we tried playing that same map, same mode, same teams, 5 times in a row, and I kept losing over and over and over again. And it sounds weird that my fondest memory of that game is when I was getting my ass kicked, but what a testament to how fun that game is even though I was losing terribly, I still was having fun. I still wanted to keep playing more. And to me, that's the testament of a great game. It's like Bloodborne. That game just mercilessly slaughters you, makes you its bitch, and just smacks you across the face repeatedly until you beg for mercy. And yet, you still come back for more. And I'm not saying Star Wars Battlefront is on the same level as of difficulty as Bloodborne, of course, but same concept. Games that I was losing to, and yet still wanted to come back. And another thing I love about Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the campaign, which is not the best campaign. I've admitted that before in the past, but they made the effort, and it's a very interesting campaign where you have it's like an autobiographical narrative from a survivor of the Clone Wars and somebody in Vader's personal army, and the story focuses on this group of clones, this private faction of clones that grow from being, people that are on the Jedi side and will help them fight against the droids, and ones that actually participate in the massacre of the Jedi Temple with Anakin Skywalker and proceed to become Vader's own personal, they're literally called Vader's fist, this team, and you play as an unnamed trooper in this team. And it was a great story. I mean, it was very interesting. I mean, the campaign had its flaws. It had some punishing difficulty spikes at times, but it was still great. And they made the effort. And did I say it was great? I mean, it's good, and they made the effort, and it was very impressionable and I still remember that campaign, and I'm sad they're not doing it for the new Star Wars Battlefront, but hey, you know, it might be in the season pass. Look, just fucking... Oh, it's just $50. Anyway, but yeah, that's my story about Star Wars Battlefront and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Two games that I love to this day, still play on my decrepit old PlayStation 2, and they're awesome. You have a PlayStation 2 or a PC or an Xbox, go check them out. They're wonderful. Alrighty, thank you guys for watching. If you like to see, subscribe. Stay tuned sometime this week if I can get a copy of Star Wars Battlefront for whatever means. I'm not going to buy it, but if I can rent a copy of it, I'll definitely record some gameplay for you guys and post my impressions. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.